Olá a todas e todos.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to this first webinar, Talking Business, Business Transformation. Before introducing our speakers, I'd like to thank the dean and interdean, the directors of different schools, not only for this event, but for believing in this series, Talking Business and the Global Hub that we have at Uninter since 2020. The goals of Uninter's Global Hub are to help students to take better advantage of international opportunities, to bring more of the world to Uninter and take more of Uninter to the world. And finally, to open new horizons. I do believe that this event, this webinar has a lot to do with our goals. And I'll be very brief in introductions here because as you see, we have a lot of talent here that you're going to see on the screen. And I want to maximize their time with you. So the Tracy, Miguel C., and Professor Mary Alves from Uninter. I'm the mediator. I'm Jason Dyer. I'm an American. I spent 15 years in Brazil, and I'm the link, and you can either train your English or listen to the conversation in English. We know that most of it is in our main channel. So let me talk a little bit about the three speakers. We're going to have three different point of views here in terms of digital transformation. Parker's going to talk about the perspective of a startups. He's a startup owner. He's created many companies. Miguel is going to talk from a multinational point of view. And Professor Maria will talk about individuals, students, or those who are already working. We're going to have around 25 minutes for questions and answers. And then we are going to have a 10-minute interaction conversation with each speaker. So we are going to end on time, just like we started on time. So at 8 o'clock Brazil time, we're going to finish our webinar. So I'm going to introduce Portuguese. So Miguel is a partner at Founders Intelligence in Latin America. He helps large companies to reinvent themselves, innovate, and grow in the real world with the innovative and intelligent use of new digital tools. He has an extensive experience in corporate leadership and strategy, mergers and acquisitions, business transformation, and new venture launches. I, as a person, I I benefit from his technical skills. I know his ability to motivate and lead teams under pressure, and also his interpersonal skills. So he has a technical background. He started his career in Monero Group. He graduated in, he had a postgrad at Brown University, a very good university in the US, and he has a background in engineering. He did his MBA from in he has an MBA from his from MIT, and we know about his work as a with multinational companies. Professor Mary Avis, she's a new friend and a colleague at Uninter. She coordinates the social media management technology program. She teaches digital marketing, social media advertising strategy, analytics, e-commerce, writing for the digital world, branding. So he has many certifications from Google, and he wrote the book CEO, the truth CEO. If you're not in Google, it doesn't exist. So she frequently shares her expertise with companies such as TV Global, Eastern Magazine, UOL, and others. She was the first place in her master's degree at the Federal University of Paraná. So she did a lot to get where she is right now. So after introducing these two speakers, I'm going to change into English.
For you, for Cobley, for your clients, I know that digital transformation is more than a buzzword, which is the title of this talk in the English version. Parker is the founder and CEO of Cobley. It's a vehicle telematics and field services tech company that's based in Sao Paulo. I first met Parker back when he was a student at Harvard Business School, but don't confuse that. By the time he was a student at HBS, Parker had already founded a company in the finance space, auto insurance in the United States, that was successful. And when we met, I think it was his first trip to Brazil, he can tell us, but he was in Brazil. I know he was learning quickly. I had no doubt about that. I'm not sure if he was already thinking about his next startup. He probably was, which is Cobley. Parker has raised over $100 million for his companies. He's a graduate of Duke University, undergraduate, both in economics and mathematics. And as I mentioned, he received his MBA from Harvard Business School. So welcome, Parker. Welcome, Miguel. Welcome, Maria. It's great to have you all here. Here we go. Parker, questions. I'll give you a question. You've got about 2 minutes in the first one. In 2016, Cobley, with you on the stage, won the who are looking at the questions that you are putting into various different respective chats. Please do not repeat those questions multiple times, because we are going to ask a number of questions that we've already thought through to give you the most value possible. And then in the Q&A session, the question and answer session, I will turn to questions that have come up. So please don't get upset if your question's not hit certainly now, and we'll do our best to get as many questions in as possible. So with that, this question is from Ariadne Bogu. who is a student at Uninter. And her question is, how can a small team working remotely manage and prioritize requirements to meet customer demands?
That is a very complicated question. So first off, I think you have to say, how do we define what those customer demands are? And you have two ways of doing that. You can either use technology tools to measure what are they actually using, what are the pain points of the end user. And then the second tool you have, which is obviously the much more difficult one today, is you need to visit and talk to your clients. At the end of the day, it's humans using whatever product or service you're having. And the more you can communicate them, the more you can create empathy with that end user, the better your product is going to be. But then at the same time, it needs to be as digitalized a process as possible so you can iterate faster, learn faster, and continuously build a better product.
Great. And I know Ariadne, she's one of the student ambassadors for Uninter, and she
Great.
There's also a recently formed Google Student Developer Club. So she's in a career change. So I'm not sure if I have this right, but it could be that part of her question is just around the mechanics. So when you have a distributed team that's trying to develop something.
So we were very lucky because we're a technology startup. So we were digitally native. And so all of our teams were already using things like Slack. Obviously our tech stack has no dependency on the physical world. So we're very lucky that going remote was very easy for us because we essentially operate in a very remote way already. The complexity was much more of the cultural element. Right. And so the importance of people getting to know each other when they first enter a company, it's a highly diluted experience when it has to happen digitally. How do you build and communicate culture when it's only written and via Zoom? It really is a much inferior process. And so today we are still a fully remote team. We have a team of 220 people throughout. I think we have about half the states in Brazil. We have employees because we hire remotely today. But we do as much as we possibly can to try to bridge the gap in the physical world to make it a more digital and a better experience. But the short answer is you need to be able to have more robust communication through digital means to make up for everything that you don't have by physical interaction.
Great, thanks. So I know that you're digital natives at Cobley. Can you give an example of how digital transformation in vehicle fleet management is impacting professionals from different areas? And I know that you work with drivers, fleet managers, customers that aren't necessarily in digital native environments. So how's digital transformation impacting the vehicle fleet management, both for companies that have already embraced heavily digital transformation and for those who are earlier on?
Sure, I'll give two examples. I'll give one example of a small company and one example of a big company. So the first example of a big company, this is a shipping company that everyone knows and uses probably on a weekly basis here in Brazil. And through our technology, they are now able to, when the package delivery goes out for delivery, they can actually send a link to the end user and actually track their package in the same way that you can track your Uber or Hoppy arriving to your house. And so giving that real-time information to that end user and then enabling them to send it to the end client of greater trust to know exactly when their package is going to arrive as opposed to sometime in the next 3 days. On a smaller company level, one that we really like is we work with a lot of ambulance companies. The most important thing for an ambulance company is the response time after they get a phone call with an emergency. And we had one of the largest ambulance companies in all of Brazil. We were actually able to bring their response time down from an hour and a half. So if you call and someone's having a medical emergency, it would take them an hour and a half to get there. We brought that response time down to 35 minutes by basically having better positioning in the field, a quicker way of dispatching the vehicle, and a quicker way of communicating that with the end client. At the end of the day, we're always just the digital transformation is trying to create a better experience for that end user.
Great, thanks so much. So it sounds like saving lives in addition to saving time.
Exactly.
So what's the biggest stumbling block you faced in establishing and growing Cobley, and how did you get past it?
Everything. In the very early days, the hardest thing is you have to choose two things. What am I going to build? And that is a very, very hard question because typically people have biases on what they want to consume as opposed to what the market wants to consume. And then the second is that if you've never built technology before, it's very hard to build technology, right? It's very hard to attract good developers, very hard to figure out a very good architectural stack. So like, how will the technology be formulated? And then the hardest part is saying, what is that, what people call a minimum viable product, right? What is the first thing that we're going to launch to the market to try to validate, see if the market wants it or not? And so I'd say that is kind of the business school answer. The hardest part is people, right? The hardest part is attracting people who have cultural alignment with you, attracting people who are very productive and know how to build things fast and test quickly and know how to sell products, and keeping all those people aligned and happy as the company scales. And so at the end of the day, it always comes back to people. Like there is no special technology secret sauce within a company. It's a group of people that have to be highly aligned, both culturally and systemically, around the same thing.
Great. Well, that is a perfect segue to my next and final question for you before we move on to Miguel. Is Cobly hiring?
We are hiring very aggressively. So today we have a team of about 220 people. We need to hire 300 people over the next year. So we're more than doubling the team over the next year. We have two very big departments at Cobly. Department one is the technology team. So we need everything from electrical engineers who manage our hardware to full stack developers to data scientists and everything in between. And so we're hiring a lot of people for technical talent. And then the second one is the go-to-market team, right? Which is the commercial and sales team. So everything from individual and young salespeople who will be qualifying leads, all the way to more senior people who actually be managing daily accounts and understanding and reading that client, helping them upsell, helping them have better customer service. So super happy. We have tons of positions open on LinkedIn. Please, you're brightest, most motivated. We're super excited to build the team.
That is great. And as we transition to Miguel, I'm also going to switch over to Portuguese, and then we'll see you back in Q&A with your great Portuguese. Feel free during
Jason.
that time to stick into our speaker chat, a link or anything that you'd like us to get out to people so that they know where to look and hunt you down.
Super.
Ok, perfeito. Obrigado, Parker. Agora, vamos conversar com Miguel.
Thank you, Parker. Now you're going to Miguel. Miguel, okay. Before joining Founders Intelligence, you worked in both startup companies in Brazil, Netstream and OptiGlobe, but also in large multinational companies in the US, at Bose, and in Brazil at Cargill. My question is, how do you in Founders Intelligence use this mix of experience to advise large companies on digital transformation? Great, Jason. Thank you for the invitation. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you. And you said the pleasure working with you. You are the most Brazilian American that I know, and it's an honor working with you. Before getting into the answer to your question, I'd like to demystify this term digital transformation. From my experience, we emphasize a lot in the digital part of it, and not much in the transformation part of it. And from my experience, from what I had at Founders Intelligence, we work both elements, of course, but in general, the transformation part, the change, that's the most challenging part of it. Of course, digital is a catalyzer of change, but change in itself is our greatest challenge. Looking at my experience and the diversity of experience that I've had working with startups, multinationals, different geographies, different positions, strategy, new business system, management, one business unit, and well, in practice, it really helps to advise our clients, the executive of the multinationals we work with, that this transformation, at the end of the day, will go through issues such as why change? Why change my business? What do I have to do to change? And how do I do it? How do I execute it? And that's the background that I bring to the table. It helps because trying to advise based on my own experience. I've been at the other side of the table, and I bring a direct experience to bring to our clients. Perfect. Now, what are the specificities of every industry, every sector? Do they have uh, a lot of weight? Do they have different activities that the companies are working as core business? And the diversity in companies at the same sector. What has been your experience with the importance of an industry, or the issue is more embracing technology? Actually, every sector, every industry has a different dynamic. They have they at a different part of the cycle. They've been through, they are going through different market change and pressures. One of the catalyzers of digital transformation comes from technology, how technology has been applied at a certain sector, but also it comes from the change in consumers' behavior. As Parker said, consumers at the end will demand something different, and that will lead to a change for a company or for a sector. Okay, that will tell us difference among sectors, but within the same sector, we have the different attitudes, uh, different companies. Some companies are more proactive, they are pioneers in transformation, and others are followers, they are more reactive. And okay, within the same sector, you can have different attitudes depending on the position of the company. Now, we can have these industry difficulties, and within the industry, there are a lot of common things that you can see when we study and follow this digital transformation process. I'll mention three of them. One is that this transformation is always born from a dissatisfaction. For a change, a company, the leadership, the executives, or the market will say, what I've done so far is not enough to take me to the future. So we need some restlessness, dissatisfaction. Another thing that is common in every transformation we see, it's we, the more clear it is to us to where the business has to go, faster this transformation is going to happen. And finally, this is no digital transformation is 100-meter race. It's a marathon, and every marathon starts with the first kilometer. So the company, they start with their first steps in a more assertive way. We end up faster transformation and a more precise one. Can you explain entrepreneurial growth to us? The translation will be entrepreneurial, but I saw that at Founders Intelligence, and would appreciate if you could explain that. Entrepreneurial growth is a methodology that we created at Founders Intelligence, and this methodology is born with a belief that large companies, traditional companies, 100-year companies, and their executives leading these companies, the owner of the companies, the shareholders of these companies, they have a lot to learn and to benefit looking and learning from startup models and what digital entrepreneurs are not, or digital or not entrepreneurs like Parker who's here with us, and the way they act. Or so entrepreneurial growth is exactly that, to bring this toolkit that an entrepreneur applies to put together a startup, take risk, find funding and execute their vision of future. I mean, using the same toolkit that a company as Parker's one brings, we believe that a large company can also use it and they can benefit from it when we think about growing and developing a business. And I think that's what entrepreneurial growth has to do, and that's what we want to bring to our clients. Without mentioning names or clients, could you give us some examples of traditional sectors and how innovation varies in different companies? Yeah, we have a great variability. It can be throughout sectors. Companies can have different attitudes, but the way to innovate and transform, I would say that it varies in terms of, let's say, the status of the business. Sometimes a business is at a certain point that it either transform or it dies. So it's a matter of urgency. For some business, they are more visionary and the transformation is being done to expand an existing advantages, an existing advantage. They are pioneers. They've always been pioneers. They are always ahead of their competitors. And then it doesn't matter the size. It has to do, but well, the other thing that varies a lot is how fast the transformation happens. Uh, and it has a lot to do with culture. What is the culture of the company? The company's tradition. And again, we have many differences, but we also see a lot of processes that are common in the process of innovation and transformation. What we see that is common, and regardless of the company's DNA, is that in the realm of innovation, the company is willing to do something different, something new. And that demands the ability, the learning ability of the company. And how do they learn? And that should be a gradual process. We see that a lot of companies that do that successfully, they start walking first, and then they start running, and then they fly. So that's a characteristic or best practice that we see a lot. Another thing is that they embrace innovation openly. It's faster. Yeah, it's easier to learn with those who know those who do things different from you. Companies who try to innovate openly away from their four walls, they are more successful. And the third point will be agility, testing cycles, adaptation cycles, and do it in real time is a very current practice. Great. My final question before talking to Professor Maria has to do with students. Andrea Lopez and Isaias Roberto, they both, Andrea founded a company and he went after Google and they founded this student group, and Isaias is also part of this group. So their question is, what is the most valuable skill and the most difficult skill to find in technology professors to advance in digital transformation? Does technical knowledge or professional experience weighs more? Let me go back to the beginning of my first answer. And I will go back to this interpretation of digital transformation. Digital, of course, the technical and technological part of it is very important in any stage of your career, undeniably. But from our point of view, and what I said before, digital transformation, the greatest challenge comes from transformation that comes from digital. So if the hard skills of technical knowledge and the soft skills that more to do with leading change and transformation is a skill that is very important. So thinking about careers and training, my interpretation would be that the pace of change in the world is getting more and more accelerated. So we've been through a lot of transformation, and we are going to go through a lot of transformation. And in this scenario, a professional who is agile, adaptable, and ability of learning, regardless of the skill that an opportunity of a challenge demands, will be or will remain relevant and will be competitive. So I think that's my advice. That's what I like to share with my peers. Perfect. Thank you, Miguel. Professor Maria, let's go straight to the question. Thank you for your participation. I was impressed by the diversity of courses that you teach. What advice would you have for students who are assessing which areas they should focus and how deep they should dive into? And I think it has to do with what Miguel was saying. We need to get updated all the time. There are so many areas and subjects. What would you advise people who are multitasking? First of all, thank you so much for your invitation. I'd like to congratulate you all, the speakers and those um, in our audience. I'm from marketing, and marketing is very broad. Talking about market, for a marketing professional to be good, they need to have strategic vision. And for that, you need multi-knowledge. So that's why I learned about many things, and I had a lot of time to learn because I've always worked with marketing communication. So since I was a teenager, started studying social media in practice. I had a YouTube channel, test hypotheses, variables. So I've always been working with that. In my opinion, today as a professor, regardless of the area you work, we need to have a 360 vision, but you need to be good at something. It doesn't today, it doesn't, it's not good for you to be a great generalist. You know about everything, but you don't know a lot about something. So in case of marketing, you need to understand about photography, audiovisual, presentation, social media, many tasks, many things, just like you need to understand about other skills that are not in your uh, training course. You need to understand your language, Portuguese. Um, one of one of the things that is good at the unit or that you have, like for example, Portuguese for Portuguese speakers, those are very good skills. So that's my tip. You need to be a 360 professional. Try to understand everything about your profession, but try to be very good at something. Perfect. Now, could you give me an anonymous example of a student who were very successful in a career change or individual digital transformation? What can we learn from a certain case? We have a very cool case in our digital marketing class. We had this student who studied education, and he was not happy with like staying at the same place all the time. So he started studying digital marketing, and he went through many schools, and he arrived at UNIT and he loved it. That's what he said. He's anonymous, but he knows who I'm talking about. So now he's a digital nomad. He's a marketing digital professional. He's trying to understand everything about your topics. He practiced a lot, took a lot of courses, and he's already working with clients. So he go around the country and he wants to go abroad to get to know the rest of the world uh, with digital marketing. So it's possible for you to have a digital transformation. There's another case of a student. When we started the classes, the digital class, marketing digital class, he wasn't very good in his communication skills. And he said, oh, this digital world is so confusing. I cannot have a digital call, so complicated. And he started generating contact for LinkedIn and other digital networks. And we started helping him to get into this digital universe. So those two cases for me are very good cases of digital transformation, cases of individuals. One became a digital nomad, and the other, through digital channels, he managed to express better, communicate better, and become a digital professional. Now, I have a question. I apologize because in a digitalized world, how can you separate the professional identity from your personal life? Do you have any advice on how to navigate all these tensions? Yes, it is a challenge because someone are people who in their personal profiles expose themselves like digital influencers, and people, they start influencing other people, their followers. They ask about your personal life. Us who are teachers, we go through that all the time. Throughout our classes, say, oh, tell me a little bit about your daily activities. Tell me how does it work studying your master's degree. So it's hard to separate things because like cell phone is now part of our body. There's no way out. That's a reality. And I think it's very hard, but I think it's even harder for people trying to strengthen their personal brand. And for me, something that I like to tell my students that your personal brand, your name, is your task only to manage it. And digital channels are here to help us. We have many free resources that help us to merge your personal life into your professional life. And that's a two-way street because at the same time they can add some of our speakers in my LinkedIn, you start learning from them. I can also generate a content that can help them as well. Two-way street. And I think that's a very positive point from the 2.0 web. It's not only having internet as a single way road that I only consume content and start having this interaction. People who don't bring these two together, professional life and personal life, they end up uh, losing some of the power of digital. But some people don't like to use it for their personal life. It's up to you. But professionally, those who can manage to put those two things together will be more successful. Yeah. Yeah, and also it depends on your age. Throughout time, you need to renew yourself, rebuild yourself. Like Miguel said, you have uh, individuals and companies who have different habits, and all of us need to get up to date, but we also need to understand that depending on your audience, we need to act differently and have different preferences. Final question before we get the the general Q&A. We have many questions here. I'll do my best to uh, pass them to you. Final question to Maria. What is the next skill that you plan to learn or improve, and why? I like a lot analysis in marketing. I like marketing without making this wild guess to take an action, to take action. I think my second book is called Digital Market Based on Data, and I like analysis and analytics. So I try to understand more. Recently, I felt like learning data science. And just to add to what I said before, I think it's also important to think about companies, but not only companies, but also people. Think about a digital adaptation. Sometimes this digital revolution, digital transformation can be something harsh. I think adapting is a better way to phrase it. If you're afraid of digital, afraid of becoming accountant, afraid of adding a successful profile, go easy, adapt, do your network with other people, add people on your social media, adapt, not harshly as a transformation. Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you for your answers. And now we are going to open for question and answers. I'm going to try to put together some of the answers. If you have more questions, go ahead, send it to us. Okay, I'm going to read 3 questions that I think that have a lot to do. And I'd like to ask some of you from the panel to answer. Otherwise, I will select someone to say something. Okay, so this question, I'm going to use just the first name, is Ismail. And he asks, what is the digital transformation area that is more active currently? Logistic, medicine transformation, or etc. And what is the impact of 5G? That question came from the Polo Uninter from the West. And Josuel asked whether, as he said, that Brazil use a lot of technology and getting more products with technology. How is Brazil seen in the technological world? And then Brazil regarding comparing to the world, and what is the sectors with more digital, is more active in the digital transition? So you can open your mic, or I can ask you randomly. Well, do you want me to answer one of them or each one of them? Okay, they are related. So if you there are any connection between all these technologies, well, I will try to answer first question, Ismail's question. What are the areas that are demanded in terms of digital transformation? I think one that is very evident and what comes, and it came to light with everything that we've been through throughout the pandemic, and that's medicine, telemedicine, digital medicine. Actually, there was a shock that brought in all that into evidence. The mainstream way of receiving and connecting to health health sector, and with the pandemic, priorities increase in terms of care and investment people are doing in their health and for their health for their family. So this area has shown an increasing number of companies, different types of companies, and also health is not what it used to be, like going to the doctor. It's something more holistic, like mental health, for example, like having peace of mind, tranquility, dealing with stress, pressure, in all of these fields, more broadly speaking, nutrition, more and more nutrition has to do with health. Your health is what you eat. So health is something that has, as a sector that's been through a lot of change, and wherever there's change, we have technology behind it. So yeah, that's one to highlight. Thank you, Miguel. Next question is Gerson, and it has to do with a lot of you, with all of you. I'm sorry. I'm going to ask Maria, then Parker, then Miguel. If you could comment quickly.
Concorrer no e-commerce.
Gerson asked, what is the tip for a small company to get into the e-commerce business and compete against a multinational company? Can I start? Yeah, I think that to start competing against whoever you're talking about, size of the company. So many people get into digital with e-commerce and different platforms, but consumers, they don't want more of the same. The most successful cases, they have a great differential. So it's important to think different. What can you offer that your competition doesn't, regardless of their size? Great. Yeah, there are three things that we try to optimize: lead generation, then the product price. Of course, people are very sensitive to price. And finally, delivery. Yes, we can compete better, like if you're using digital marketing or pay or something to attract traffic, paid traffic, but the idea is to attract people to this site. You're not going to compete in price. Mercado Libre is always going to have a better price than you, but you are plugged into the best systems of logistics. And that's very, very obvious that people want to pay more to receive their goods faster. How can I optimize my logistics? Typically through several platforms, things like Cobly, Log, Infracommerce, to optimize and guarantee a fast delivery. How can I generate this lead and close the lead in my website? So I focus on lead and delivering the product. Great. Gonna link to Parker's response, just to gonna focus on multinationals. Multinationals, and they have a great reach, they have great resources, but there are many stories of smaller companies, startups that managed to find a successful way in focusing. Focusing how? Understanding very accurately how a certain segment that wasn't well served by the market, what did this segment want? And finding a customized solution to service that segment. And I think the more intelligence and insight and intimacy that you have with the data regarding a segment of clients, of a group of clients, and the more assertive the solution through e-commerce is for that segment, that could be a good way to do it. And the more data you have, more data there is that can be used to generate this intelligence, you can create a virtual cycle in terms of exchanges among segments in the e-commerce company we are talking about. So now this question comes from Andre Victorio, a different Andre. Could you comment on the need of digital transformation in the public sector, a sector that doesn't have a culture of innovation? Parker, can you address it? Yeah, that's true. That's a cultural problem. And of course, they don't have a culture of adopting new technology, implementing new things, doing things fast. They are not very connected to metrics. The question is, the issue is, I need to start small. Let's start with a small part of the company or the organization, try to implement something new. Because things are not changed from one day to another. But you can change slices of the operation. And then people or the public will start looking and seeing the transformation. And it's cultural. It is important that in any organization, government or a small company or a multinational company, doesn't matter. There's always going to be people that are more culturally influenced. And it's important for these people to have the voice of digital change. You can be this person showing the benefits, other companies, other governments that are doing that, so that the culture can follow. But it's a great challenge. Yeah. Thank you. Next question. I'm going to ask you to the three of you. And Nivea asked the question. She asked it in English, so I'm gonna ask it in English. So she asked it in English. I'm gonna read it in English, but I'll translate it into Portuguese.
Challenge for your company after COVID. Então, qual o maior desafio que vocês têm?
What is the biggest challenge in terms for your company post-COVID? We're not there yet, but looking at the future, Professor Maria, can you comment on your view of the impact here at Uninter, and then Miguel? Yeah, despite not getting there yet, we are still in the midst of it, but I think we're almost there. I think people are still a little bit confused because we had to go through a very sudden change, two extremes. Offline world, very shyly going into online, and out of the blue, we had to change it radically. So that changed the way we act, the way we think. So I can see that many companies in the beginning of the pandemic were 100% in home office are saying, no, we're not going back. Now they want to go back. The main topic that we need to pay attention, especially me who work with students, is mental health. In terms of digital transformation, I think that we had to go through this very sudden change. You're starting to understand what our habits are. Something that in the beginning was just an emergency, now it's something constant. So for companies, that is very important. I'm on the internet and that's okay. No, for users, that's not how it works. So my tip for companies, as always, think about the experience. Gauge the relationship between clients and your company. And for students, try also to gauge whether that is your habit or that you were forced to get into that. And now you're relearning to live with on and offline worlds. Can I answer now, Jason? Yeah, from our side, from Founders Intelligence, the challenge is how to operate in a hybrid world. From what I can see, we are not going back to as it was. People every day at the office, virtually like we are today. The distance is here to stay, and it's a matter of the proportion, how much you're gonna be in person at the office and how much you're gonna be remotely, and how to bring new people to the team. And we're doing this all the time, and try to bring all these people and to have a certain experience, to assimilate a certain culture, and create ties, confident, that ties of trust, I could say that. And I think that's the main challenge. And I think that working distantly or remotely brought a lot of gains and opportunities as well. Today, we can service clients that are all over Brazil and abroad, sitting in my desk in São Paulo, and mix teams in different areas, different regions, with a lot better productivity. And that's a great gain for us. Parker? Cool. I think that the greatest challenge for me is that nowadays we have like 25% of our team not in Sao Paulo. So when we start going back, we're going to have some kind of turning those who are going to come to the office. How we are going to do that with people all over the country. Some people that are outside Brazil as well. So we just hired our new developer, and he lives far away from us. So how can I create an experience that is similar to ours, to someone who lives around the corner from our office? So It's 100% of a cultural challenge, how we can continue to engage everybody, have everybody at the same page, have everybody feeling the same as the company. I think that's a great challenge. But minimally, you have to go to the office at least once a week so we can get our team together. I think now this question comes from Soraya. How can one understand digital transformation in services apply to operational services like metallurgists, steel work? So we can start with we work with multinationally, with multinationals and different sectors. Yeah, I can start. In operational services, plants, production lines, what we can see is that a great opportunity. There are two lines: digitalized processes, like so that all these processes are interconnected in terms of data, and with intelligent technologies, artificial intelligence, these operations can operate in a optimized way. So this is one line, and the other is this the new phenomena of 4.0 plants. It's more among themselves to create a network. That's something. I think we will end up by changing the way plants optimize what plants should produce what, and that is connecting to the commercial part of it. We will allow almost in real time, when we receive an order, they assess inventories, and if you need to produce, the plant will receive direction to start producing a certain SKU or whatever product the plant manufactures. For me, there's a lot of technologies in terms of plants. I'm an investor at a company that's called Tracking. What does it do? It leaves sensors in different equipments to try to forecast or try to predict whether a plant has some sort of vibration or something that can lead a stoppage. And so the problem before the equipment actually has the problem. And there's something that is great, that is a different way to do maintenance. And of course, the equipment, we have inputs, and then we have the outputs. We have the products from the equipment, the output. What we see at Cobin, we always try to deliver all inputs to the company, all raw materials, so they can understand in real time when they're going to get it. If there's any delay, they can have a better planning in terms of uptime and downtime of this machine to try to optimize costs and productivity of a certain equipment. There's so many cool things about the equipment and plants. You should take a look at tracking.com.br. It's a great technology. Yeah, I will link to what Miguel said. I study information management, and I think there are so many so few things that we can do manually nowadays. Digital transformation, regardless of the area you are, you, Soraya, regardless of the industry you are, we can try to optimize your process with digital resources. Go little, step by step. Not many mechanical things. Use internet, use digital tools in your favor. And little by little, you see a great digital transformation in your company. So, final question. It's not here, but it's focused on part of our audience. So I'd like to ask from all of you, an advice for those who are at the other end of this call. Have people with different profiles, but let's think about someone who wants to work or wants to have a better position in terms of digital transformation, in terms of their value for the company, or how can we uh, create a better career path. What are your advices for this audience in terms of digital transformation in your life and how to get ready for this world? I can start. I have two questions. First of all, you want to understand how to use well prepared systems. You have to work next to someone who is incredible and someone who understands. The best way to learn is working with great people, with people who go after someone to work with, and you're gonna have all tools at the end of the day. I think for me, that's the best way to do it. If you cannot manage with someone like that, get close to a company like that. Ask questions. Ask to have lunch with someone. Try to understand their mind. Try to understand their frameworks. Try to understand their process, to select a tool, implement a tool, and try to extract value from that tool. Besides that, a more technical answer would be that digital transformation, you need to understand very well the process you want to deploy. To like generating leads to the internet, a production line or a client service, you need to map the internet very well, know it very well, and understand, and then understand the impact of technology. But to think about technology, first you need to understand the process that you want to solve, that there's a problem to solve, not Professor Maria. Study hard, try to practice, and get out of the box. Parker's tip is great. Try to work next to someone who knows a lot. If that's not possible, try to work next to someone like that you like. Always, every time we talk about creativity and for technology, it works pretty well. Try to imagine if it depended on you, to have a certain technological resource to solve a company's problem. When you get out of the box, we are only users, we are only consumers. And when you become an idea, be an idea catcher, then you learn more. But if you have the opportunity to study deeply in terms of technology and work next to someone who knows a lot, perfect. Thank you, Miguel. Great. The tip will be to find environments where culture is innovative. It encourages learning, encourages risk-taking, and making mistakes. That's how we learn. In a culture like that, where learning is part of our day-to-day life, that's when we're going to have people more motivated, and this culture is then contagious. And the other thing is, in terms of this same line, something that I like to keep in practice, learning has a lot to do with getting out of our comfort zone. So periodically, once a week, try to do something that will take you to a different level. I don't know if I can do that, but I'll try to get out of my box try to get out of the space that I know. And little by little, you're going to expand your borders. You're going to learn more. You're going to innovate more. So great. I like a lot to thank you so much, special our speakers. I did what I said, and that was knocking at the door of people who know more. I'm really glad. And I was out there and I wasn't afraid, I wasn't shy about doing it. Okay, you need to be ready. Preparedness. Ask well thought questions. Do your homework before asking advice. And I'm really happy with this event. I'd like to thank you, the whole Untitled team who helped in spreading the world that embrace the idea. We're going to have another event in October 28th with the same idea, talking with the specialists in different areas, but always with the relevance for students and professionals. And with that, thank you so much and see you guys soon.